This is a prayer from the Devi Mahatmya, which is a very old hymn to the goddess in her many forms. And this one is a shloka or a stanza that celebrates the Great Mother, you could say, as Narayaṇi. And so it's like she who is the protectress or the protector of all beings. And we're, in a sense, the translation is there, but the gist is that we're calling to her and saying, oh, Narayaṇi, please take care of us. The downtrodden is one translation for part of that prayer. The idea is that we're in samsara, we're in the cycle of existence, and it's not always so easy. So it's nice to have this kind of way to open our hearts to an energy or a power or a feeling that's greater than ourselves, and call and ask for blessings to descend. And so that's the feeling as we do this prayer. Oh. Narayaṇi, we can think of her as the Hindu version of the Buddhist goddess of Tara. Tara, known as the female Buddha of compassion. So that's why we do this particular prayer. It's in Sanskrit, and we'll do it 11 times. So let's close our eyes first and release into presence. Relax with the out-breath. And shed or slough off the stress of the day with each exhalation. Feel the muscles of your face soften, the jaw relax, the neck, throat, shoulders, back and belly and hips, everything soften in a way you can imagine that with each out-breath you're offering that tension like water to the earth. Let the earth support you and let the earth take the load, take the stress off your shoulders for the time being at least. Śaraṇāgata dīnārtha, Śaraṇāgata dīnārtha, paritrāṇa parāyaṇe, paritrāṇa parāyaṇe, Sarvasyārti hare Devi, Sarvasyārti hare Devi, Nārāyaṇi namostute, Nārāyaṇi namostute. Together. Śaraṇāgata dīnārtha, paritrāṇa parāyaṇe, Sarvasyārti hare Devi, Nārāyaṇi namostute. Śaraṇāgata dīnārtha, paritrāṇa parāyaṇe, Sarvasyārti hare Devi, Nārāyaṇi namostute. Śaraṇāgata dīnārtha, paritrāṇa parāyaṇe, Sarvasyārti hare Devi, Nārāyaṇi namostute. Śaraṇāgata dīnārtha, paritrāṇa parāyaṇe, Sarvasyārti hare Devi, Nārāyaṇi namostute. Śaraṇāgata dīnārtha, paritrāṇa parāyaṇe, Sarvasyārti hare Devi, Nārāyaṇi namostute. Śaraṇāgata dīnārtha, paritrāṇa parāyaṇe, Sarvasyārti hare Devi, Nārāyaṇi namostute. Śaraṇāgata dīnārtha, paritrāṇa parāyaṇe, Sarvasyārti hare Devi Narayaṇi namostute. Śaraṇāgata dīnārtha paritrāṇa parāyaṇe. Sarvasyārti hare Devi Narayaṇi namostute. Śaraṇāgata dīnārtha paritrāṇa parāyaṇe. Sarvasyārti hare Devi Narayaṇi namostute. Śaraṇāgata dīnārtha paritrāṇa parāyaṇe. Sarvasyārti hare Devi Narayaṇi namostute. Last one. Śaraṇāgata dīnārtha paritrāṇa parāyaṇe. Sarvasyārti hare Devi Narayaṇi namostute. And tonight we're going to glide right into meditation. So feel free to take a moment to adjust your seat if you need to. Take a moment to settle into your seat. You can feel free to rock your pelvis forward and back a little bit, finding your plumb line. Allowing the natural S-curve of the spine to grow up and out of the pelvic bowl. And that means that the lumbar spine is slightly arched, but not in a forceful way. It's a natural S-curve, an inward curve towards the belly button at the lumbar lower back. And then at the mid-thoracic spine, an outward curve back towards the back of the room. And then up in the neck, the cervical spine, mirroring the lumbar spine. A little bit of a curvature forward to support the occiput, which then supports the skull. So feel that craniosacral connection. Cranium at the top and the sacrum at the bottom, communicating with each other. The breath, the pulse of the fluids of the body, the spinal fluid, communicating and moving through this natural S-curve. Imperceptible perhaps, but still happening nonetheless. The hips relaxed, the legs and knees in a comfortable shape. The belly and the belt line are soft. Notice if you're holding and see if you can soften that. Let your belly soften. And also let the kidneys at the back body, right below and behind the lower ribs, breathe into that area of the low back, the kidney region. And feel if with the exhalation, the kidneys soften down towards the earth in a rooting, relaxed, softening vein. So feel that whole belt line, the front, the back, the side body. Open, expansive, relaxed. You may even feel a warmth as the hara or the dantian, the navel region, starts to open with prana. free-flowing movement, warmth, energy, your foundation. And let the breath be natural as it flows in and out, and feel the rib cage expand with the lungs as the diaphragm descends to allow the breath to come in. The diaphragm ascends as it helps the air push out. The ribs expanding with the inhalation, releasing with the exhalation. It's as if your whole body is being breathed, as if you could feel the breath all the way down the legs into the toes, down the arms into the hands, fingers. The shoulders soften, the arms relaxed, the hands on your lap in a comfortable position, either palms down on the thighs. Or in the posture of meditative equipoise, with the left hand supporting the right, palms up and the thumbs gently touching. In either case, let the hands be relaxed. The neck is nice and long. The back of the neck lengthens as the chin slightly comes down. And then bring the tip of the tongue to rest at the upper palate, the root of the top front teeth. And let the lower jaw release away from the upper jaw. And feel free to breathe through the mouth and or the nose, whatever's comfortable for you. In the beginning, we'll have the eyes closed. Relax the muscles behind the eyes and around the eyes, forehead. The first stage of meditation is so helpful just to come home to the present moment, free of agenda. This quality of being in the moment with the breath in the body. Letting the mind gently alight upon the breath, like a rider alighting upon a horse. The breath is the horse. The mind is the rider. Let them unify as it flows in and out. A very simple yet extremely helpful instruction is, if you notice the mind wandering or distracted or tied up in knots, utilize the exhalation to remind yourself to release that clinging, the grasping mind, and allow the mind to settle in a quiet, simple stillness. This feeling of releasing into the present moment, releasing into presence, awareness. Releasing thoughts of the past, present, and future. Can you rest in that place called the fourth time beyond the three? The three past, present, and future. Fourth time, beyond the three. Just rest in awareness. And tonight we'll add an element to our meditation, our tonglen and mindfulness practice. It's an aspect, accessible, simplified version of what's called Guru Yoga, a spiritual friend, and inviting the blessings of your teacher to descend. And this need not be a physical teacher. It can be a wisdom being, a protector, a teacher past or current, the Buddha, Tara, Krishna, Padmasambhava, Narayaṇi. Imagine now, above the crown of your head, your root teacher, whether it's an embodied form of a teacher in this life, or a so-called deity, or figure of light, a wisdom being perhaps, an archetype. Imagine them above the crown of your head in the space above you, sitting on a lotus and a moon seat. Even if you can't see it, see this being with details, even feeling their presence is good. And then feel, sense, imagine that this being's body is radiant, luminous, appearing yet empty like a rainbow in the sky. Facing the same direction as you, sitting right above you. Their faces happy and smiling. And imagine that they're regarding you and all beings with non-referential compassion, non-discriminating compassion. And you can imagine that this one being embodies or is the root of all your teachers, all your guides. They're all here present in this one figure of light above you. And with strong respect and devotion, pray to this being above you in your own way as I offer a simple prayer, which I'll repeat 3 times. Really feeling the blessings and receiving them through the crown of your head, like pouring nectar into you. I pray for your blessing, my teacher, great and completely worthy spiritual friend. I pray that you will cause love, compassion, and bodhicitta to arise in my mind. I pray for your blessing, my teacher, great and completely worthy spiritual friend. I pray that you will cause love, compassion, and bodhicitta, the spirit of awakening for the benefit of all beings, to arise in my mind. I pray for your blessing, my teacher, great and completely worthy spiritual friend, Kalyana Mitra. I pray that you will cause love, compassion, and bodhicitta to arise in my mind. And then imagine that this being descends through the aperture of the crown of your head called the Brahma aperture, down into your central channel, and sits in your heart chakra in a pavilion of light, like an open shell. This is known as Guru Yoga, an important way to begin every meditation session. So really feel that. And feel this being of light residing in your heart throughout the meditation, just as a warmth, a presence of blessing and love. And then now begin to practice mindfulness of the breath explicitly from the teachings of counting from 1 to 21. A simple practice of attending to the sensations of the breath as they move in. The breath moves in the body. The top of the in-breath internally count 1. And as you exhale, feel the sensations of the breath. Then inhaling, the top of the next breath, count 2. And so on in a continuous thread, like threading the pearls of a necklace. We'll do this one time tonight, but at home you can do 1 to 21 as many times as you like, as a way to calm and center and focus the mind. So we'll do this in silence, 1 to 21. Natural breath, uncontrolled mindfulness of breathing. And now, like letting go of the training wheels, let go of the counting of the breath, and simply rest in the field of sensation within the body as you breathe, and let that be your mindfulness anchor. From the inflow of the nose or mouth, down the throat, filling the lungs, the belly, expanding and releasing, whatever's happening with the breath, attend to it very closely. Become fascinated with the breath, yet within the mood of relaxation and spaciousness. Releasing distraction with the out-breath. Return to the breath. If you like, you can attend to the sensations at the aperture of the nose, between the upper lip and the nostrils. Or if you like, you can attend to the sensations at the navel, the belly, as it rises and falls with the breath. Or the whole field of the body, from head to toe, periphery of the skin, the global breath body. And now taking a step further into meditation, expanding what you may feel is or isn't meditation by opening your eyes and gently gazing at an angle towards the floor, a comfortable angle that glides right past the nose. And then soften the gaze. Feel the vision like a lantern consciousness, this broader field of awareness, almost as if you could see all the way around you. Let the eyes be soft and feel free to blink whenever you need to rest. The eyes will get used to it. It just may take some time. Relax the muscles behind the eyes. The breath is still an anchor, but it fades into the background of your awareness. And the domain of the mind itself comes to the forefront, as if you were gazing into the space of the mind itself, without letting the eyes dart or move. Let them be still. And when thoughts, feelings, sensations arise, it's as if like a cloud bubbles up from the space, the sky of the mind. Changes shape, works out its karmas, and then dissolves back into that space. Like that, thoughts, feelings, memories do the same. Can you observe without grasping, without reifying the appearances of the mind? And if you notice you've been fused with thought, reifying, grasping onto thoughts, no problem. Just notice. You can label if you want thought, and then return to the space of the mind as your anchor, this domain of the mind itself, and stabilize that experience of the spacious, open, sky-like nature of mind. This practice called settling the mind in its natural state. Boredom, fatigue, distraction, none of that are problems. You let them arise and pass like children playing on a playground, actors on a stage, coming and going. But if you don't identify with them, then there's the awareness of fatigue, the awareness of pain, the awareness of distraction. But you're stabilizing that awareness, the awareness of it all. Sit in the seat of awareness. And now for the final phase of practice, let's gently close the eyes again, but without losing that quality of spaciousness. Recognizing that awareness is not just confined to the head or the body even. And feel that vibratory expansiveness. And now we'll turn towards the heart, the practice of Tonglen, sending and receiving this bodhicitta practice. Cultivate compassion and wisdom, hallmark of the Lojong practice. And tonight we'll do the foundational aspects and then go right into working with one specific object, whether it's yourself, a loved one, a neutral person, or a so-called enemy, challenging person. So the first flash on emptiness, this quality of expansive wisdom, this nature of mind, non-solid, vibratory, interconnected web of bliss, love, shunyata. Flash on it instinctively. And then feel that manifesting as an orb of light in your heart, even a hint of that blessing of the teacher energy that's residing in your heart now grows within you. Like an orb of light, a sun in the heart space, warmth, your own Buddha nature, the spark of awakened mind within you, within each of us, residing in the heart chakra, the center of the sternum. And begin to breathe directly in and out from the heart, as if you could breathe through your pores and 360 degrees through the skin into the heart directly. So inhaling and exhaling directly in and out of the heart space. You can even take some deep breaths here. Now we can lengthen and deepen the breath. This practice of Tonglen helps to cultivate a more expansive, warm, open, compassionate heart, a greater capacity to feel with another. So let each breath sort of break down the barriers or prison walls that you may have around your heart, tightness, perhaps, or constriction or tenderness there. Let the breath aerate and tenderize the heart space. And then adding this step of texture as a preliminary practice of Tonglen, practicing breathing in the texture of a dark or hot, smoky texture directly into the sun at your heart space where it evaporates, purifies, and then with the out-breath, a cool wind, cleansing wind, clearing, light, or clear solar breeze, you could say. Keep with that texture, breathing in dense and breathing out lightness. Just feel it. And breathe in the suffering, transform it at your heart, and breathe out liberation. Breathing in samsara and breathing out nirvana. And from that foundation, now we choose an object to work with, whether it's yourself, a loved one, a neutral person, or a so-called enemy. Sometimes you can do all of those in one sit. Tonight we'll just choose one. Is there someone in your life, you or someone you know, who is suffering, who might need some prayers, some healing, some well wishes, some tonglen? If you're working with yourself, then you're simply breathing that feeling into the heart and that more dense, hot texture, and then letting it aerate, come home in the heart, and then breathing out a remedy, a liberation, a feeling of letting go, and staying with that. Or if you are working with another person, see them as clearly as you can in your mind's eye in front of you. Perhaps seeing them the way they looked the last time you saw them. Trust your instinct here. Who comes to mind? And choose one. See them as clearly as you can in your mind's eye. And any suffering they may be experiencing surrounds them like a cloud. And you breathe in their suffering to your heart space directly, transform it at your heart, and offer out a cool, clear, liberating breeze or light, helping to clear that cloud of suffering around and within them. Recognizing that, like you, they wish to be free of suffering. Feel that sense of care. And also a sense of letting go, of attachment to the outcome, just wishing them well, freedom from suffering, whatever remedy feels true to you, offer it to them with the out-breath, and be willing to take in their suffering metaphorically with the in-breath. Transform it at that light at your heart, and offer out the healing prayer. And if it's someone who challenges you, if you have resentment or anger, you might even stretch into a prayer as you exhale. I release you from my anger. I release my resentment. Just let this be personal and intuitive. Let go of the tug of war. Put down the rope. And over the course of the next 5 breaths or so, see each out breath clearing them, clearing their suffering. The cloud dissipates, they become more buoyant, maybe even surrounded by light, and their face brightens. Maybe they smile, have a sparkle in their eye, lightened disposition. Really wish that for them. See that. And feel that for yourself if you're working with yourself. What would that feel like? What would that look like? And then allowing that imagery or feeling to dissolve back into the space of the mind and rest in the afterglow. Feel the body, feel how you feel now. And then let go of any technique and just rest. Just be. Non-meditation. If you wish, you can dedicate any positive energy from your practice, like an imaginary offering for the benefit of all beings. And now let's open our eyes. Kind of gently, slowly coming back into the space of the room, our communal space. But without losing that quality of meditative awareness that you just spent 45 minutes cultivating. Yeah, and stretch your legs with mindfulness, if you want. So I thought we would practice first because the slogan is kind of more of a Dharma teaching. Sometimes these Lojong slogans are meant to be contemplated. All of them can be. But some are more explicitly meant to be like a meditative koan or something to contemplate in your sit. But then some are meant to be discussed, like more of a straightforward teaching about the nature of reality or how we practice or how we bring practice into our daily life. And so this one is a bit more like the latter, so I thought we'd sit first. It's nice to change things up a little bit, yeah? So sometimes we talk first and then meditate. Sometimes we meditate and then talk. Do we feel like we need a minute or two to just stand up? Yeah, let's do that. So go ahead, and if you like, stand up, or if you want, you can lie down even. Just stretch your legs. Yeah, do whatever feels good to you intuitively. I feel like I want to raise my hands over my head. Maybe even spiral through the spine a little bit. So do whatever you want for the next couple minutes, and I'll do what I want. And if you want to copy me, you can. It's nice to find a way to traction your spine, either forward fold or down dog or something like that, so you can get more space between the vertebrae, let the discs have some relief from gravity. Okay, last 30 seconds or so, and then we'll come back. All right, let's find our way back to our seat. It's so important to find a meditation position that is really comfortable for you. Like, that's okay. We don't have to look like the statues or like the teacher. Really, I want to encourage you to own it. Just do what feels good for you. I'm not in your body. Nobody else is in your body. It's only you in there. So you're the one who has to walk out of this room in your body. You're the one who has to wake up tomorrow in your body. So how will your future self feel? Even 10 years down the line of 10 years of meditating, how will your knees feel? How will your back feel? Your hips, your neck? Like, the time is now, people, especially you youngins. Don't waste your time. I think those of us who are a little older, we know that already, We don't care what people think anymore. Right? So I have some different positions. Like for me, for the longer sits, I find I am so happy on this amazing thing. It's called meditationseat.com. Meditationbench.com. I'm making that up. I can't see it. Yikes. I've had a different version. This is the best. Somebody left this here, Katie said, so I've adopted it. So don't take it. It's mine. There's only one. I'm so happy every time. I'm like, oh, good. Nobody took that one. We should get more. Anyway, I don't care. I love it. And my body is happy. I can sit without it screaming at me. I sat for years trying to push through the screaming. And sometimes it goes away and sometimes it doesn't. So I know I say this a lot, but there are new people in the room and it's important. So you're free also to lie down in my class, honestly. There are chairs in the back and that's great too. But supine position is a viable meditation seat and I am okay with that. Not all teachers are. My mentor had scoliosis, did years and years of solitary retreat. He said he just finally gave in and he meditates most of the time lying down. It's totally okay. Buddha taught 4, count them 4. And there are many more than that even, but viable meditation seats. Sitting, and then there are a lot of variations within that. Walking. So I take that as also dancing. I think that is like moving. Lying. And standing. So it's not just sitting on your butt. You've been to Thailand with the famous lying Buddha, lying on his side? That's nice. Try that. It's called the lion's pose. The Tibetans say you should sleep in that posture on your right side. Cheek in your right palm. Tibetans even say big body pillow underneath. No, I'm kidding. That's what I say. Big body pillow. And your left hand is on your side. So you're like that. And they say that's the position we should die in, if we can. Yeah, so sleeping is just preparing for that. Okay, so how did that, some of you have been coming regularly and we haven't done the Guru Yoga before. Guru has such a bad rap these days, I kind of like don't want to say it, but it's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful word, and when you have an authentic teacher, there's nothing better, right? So that does happen, and it happens more often than not. So let's just not focus on the negative all the time. But it's important to acknowledge that does exist as well. But the beauty of having somebody in a body who embodies the teachings and can show you the way, there's no greater gift. So if you have that, then this type of feeling or visualization can be very healing and beautiful. If you don't have that, that's okay too. You can feel that in the presence of like Avalokiteshvara, Buddha of compassion, or Aryatara, female Buddha of compassion, or Krishna, or Jesus, right? Or Yahweh, or Allah, or Brahma. However you feel it, you can use that. You can feel that energy as your teacher, yeah, and then receive the blessings. Say that prayer. I'm going to print that out. I'm going to make a new handout for you all. It will have that prayer, and it will have some other things I want to teach you. So then, and you can even make up your own prayer. Basically, you ask for blessing, support, love. May your heart open. Any heart prayer like that. And then imagine that being dissolves right through, it's called the Brahma aperture. It's kind of like, we know when you're babies, you have the soft spot. It's that. That's said to be at the time of death. Sometimes the consciousness shoots out through the crown aperture. It's supposed to be a very holy place. Opens to the crown chakra and the universe. So you imagine that that being of light dissolves down into the Brahma aperture, in through the central channel, and then resides in this pavilion of light, like a shell in your heart chakra. And then they're there with you your whole practice or your whole day. So that is a practice that is in this wonderful book called The Great Path of Awakening. It's a commentary on these Lojong slogans by one of the greatest non-sectarian Tibetan Buddhist teachers called, his name was Jamgon Kongtrul, the Great, they called him. And I just love this book. Like if you took one book into a solitary retreat or a desert island, this could be it. And in it, he gives this simple Guru Yoga. There are a lot of different versions of Guru Yoga, by the way. This one is very pithy and concise that I guided you through. And it's on page 8 of this book. And then he says, then enter into contemplation or the 21 breaths. There's a whole, you basically do anything after you do that prayer. So we'll do that more. We'll do that for a while so it gets in your body. Okay, but onward and upward. I wanted to tell you a little story. It was something I was going to tell you last week, but we ran out of time. Last week, we really dove into explicitly the teaching on dong and len, the sending, dong, and then the lening. Len is the Tibetan word for taking or receiving. And then that's the breath work, and then the imagination of self or other, and you can work in any way that feels good to you. We talked a lot about that. And just so you guys know, if you miss a class or if you're new to classes, you can see all the past classes on the Alembic YouTube channel. So if you didn't come last week and you want to learn that, then watch last week's class. It's the Berkeley Alembic. It's all free. Michael's classes are there, as you probably know. And everybody else who teaches here who streams will be on there. It's also live streamed, I believe, right? It's live right now, right? Yeah. So that's a resource for you. But there's a story that I love that really gets at the alchemy of Tonglen. It's of the great yogi Saint Milarepa, who was an 11th century or 10th century yogi of Tibet, really one of the most beloved yogi saints of Tibet. He was well known for his songs of realization, dohas. Often he's depicted with his hand at his ear singing, and the animals have come and gathered all around him to receive his blessing. So he's his life and teachings are phenomenal. But there's a story about him that elucidates the logic or the thrust of what it is we're doing in the Tonglen, which is turning towards rather than away from the challenges in our life. And it goes like this. So he lived most of his life alone in a cave meditating. He had a very checkered past. He actually had learned the sorceress arts. Is that a word? Sorcery, like Voldemort. He was just kind of evil guy. And because he was angry, he had been wronged as a child, and he wanted to get revenge. And he learned how to change the weather and create natural disasters and do things. And he caused a lot of suffering, and he did get his revenge. But then after that, he felt horribly, horribly guilty. And that guilt brought him to learn the Dharma with a teacher, Marpa, who made him go through all sorts of trials and tribulations, great stories. But what I want to get at is this one little story of after all those trials and tribulations of learning with his teacher, Marpa, the translator, he finally set off to meditate on his own in a cave. And he survived mostly and solely on nettles, which is interesting, good for the liver and kidneys. But he ate solely nettles to the point where he turned green. So not only is he pictured with his hand on his ear, but he's also pictured very emaciated and green. And he just had one cotton shawl to wear in the snow in Tibet. So he knew the inner heat practice. So the story goes that one day he left his cave to go get, food or water, nettles. And he comes back and he hears all this commotion in his cave. And he goes in, who's in my cave? And he sees a whole party of demons creating havoc in his cave. Some stories say demonesses, some say, masculine, female demons having a party, causing trouble. And he thought, oh no, I have to get rid of these demons. They're making such a mess and they're interrupting my tranquility. So he thinks, what can I do? And the thought came to him, well, I have to teach them the Dharma. So he started teaching on the Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Path and trying to teach them Dharma. And they just laughed at him and they kept causing their trouble, ignoring him. And so he thought, oh no, this is so annoying. And then he got angry. He got angry at them and he's like, I'm going to scare them away. So he ran at them in anger and they just laughed even harder, making fun of him. Look at you, you think you're so scary. You didn't go anywhere. So he thought, okay, well, what else can I do? Well, if you can't beat them, join them. Maybe I'll just coexist with them. So he tried to make peace in a way and live for a little bit with them for probably a few moments. It didn't last for very long. And that wasn't working. And then it dawned on him that he remembered the teachings of Marpa, his teacher, on the illusory nature of all phenomena, the emptiness, shunyata, of all things, both internal, external appearances, internal appearances. They arise, they exist, but not solidly, not intrinsically of their own accord. That in that way, everything is empty of intrinsic existence, right? That's the teaching of the Buddha, teachings of shunyata, emptiness. He remembered that. And so he thought, oh, okay, now I get it. So what he did is he turned towards them and he offered himself to them. Like, devour me, eat me, I surrender. And in that moment, they dissolved, they evaporated. And he realized, okay, that's it. Just like the great yogini Machi Glabdran, she had a similar story of offering herself to the Naga serpents who were coming after her to devour her. She's like, hey, no self, no problem, right? Like, eat me, devour me. And suddenly, not exactly like the demons, but the Nagas with Machik, they actually bowed down to her and they saw her as a great being and they pledged to be her allies, her protectors. So both of those stories elucidate the idea behind Donglen, Che, feeding your demons, of that which we resist persists, that wonderful one-liner. So therefore, what would it be like to turn towards it, right? Turn towards something that's challenging us or a person that we would like to push away and take an even a bigger step, like in the Tonglen, and feel what would it be like if I could even welcome in the thing I don't like about them. Remember, we're not literally breathing in their disease or their hatred. We're bringing in whatever that challenge is in the form of that smoky vapor, right? The hot texture. But we're having the courage, what would that be like, to relieve them of that for this moment and then transform it at the heart and send out healing, remedy. So this is what we'll keep coming back to again and again with the Tonglen. So I just wanted to share that story before I get on to the next slogan. Yeah? Does that feel okay? Can I go to the next slogan or do you want to talk about that a little more? Good. Okay, let's keep going. All right, this one's cool. It's deep, but it's also quite straightforward. And we'll open it tonight, and then maybe we'll keep going next week with it if we need to. On your handout, which is yours to keep. If you want to keep that one, you can. Or you can just turn it in at the end of the class. But it's number 8, slogan number 8. Who wants to read that out loud? Someone who hasn't read before? Number 8? Yes, please. First, tell me your name.
I am Mok.
Mok?
Yeah, reflection of Om.
Oh, nice. Beautiful. I like that. Wow.
Number 8, 3 objects, 3 poisons, and 3 seeds of virtue.
That's right. Good. Thank you. The Buddhists love lists. They like groupings of 3s, 4s, 5s, you name it. 10, 6, 8. Do you know why? I mean, this not only this, but numbers are great and lists and outlines are great for what? Memorizing. Yeah, because the teachings weren't written down until about 300, 400, 500 years after the Buddha died. So they were memorizing techniques. So you'll find, if you haven't already, that there's a lot of lists in these teachings. 3 objects, 3 poisons, and 3 seeds of virtue. Okay, so what are the 3 objects? Well, simply put, the 3 objects are objects or external things out there. Like we're the subject, the world is the object, right? So 3 objects mean the ways that the world either presents itself as pleasant to us, that's one object. Unpleasant, that would be the second object, you could say, or category of objects in the world. And then the third is neutral. So we go around the world, we come in, we bang into things, we fall in love, we ricochet around this planet Earth, and we experience things as either pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. Basic Dharma teachings, right? You see it in meditation, like, oh yeah, I like that thought, I don't like that thought, oh, I don't care so much about that one, that person, that thing. You see, this kind of broad strokes, 3 objects. The food, I either like it, don't like it, or don't really care much for it, right? That person, that movie, Succession. I have mixed feelings about Succession. I like the banter, but I was so bored with the story. Anyway, so yeah, Succession. Sometimes I really hated it. Sometimes I liked it. Sometimes I was like, yeah. I just have to get through so I know what happens at the end. So you see what I mean? 3 objects. Then, because of those 3 responses, you could say, that we have to the world, we like it, we don't like it, or we're neutral, then we have the potential for what are called the 3 poisons, which are kind of maybe more well known to you, right? The classic teachings of the 3 poisons within Buddhism: attachment on the one hand, aversion on the other, and then ignorance or not really caring in the middle. That's the neutral one. So if we come into contact with a pleasurable stimuli object, what are we going to feel towards it usually? Attachment. Yes, we want it. We want more attachment. If we come into contact with something that's unpleasant, what are we going to feel? Aversion. And if we come into contact with something that we don't really care much about, neutral, what are we going to feel? Yeah, indifference. It's kind of like they say ignorance is the 3rd poison or the root poison, but it's also like a not caring or a numbness, like a cloudy uncertainty or unknowing. It's there's a lot of ways you can interpret that ignorance, how it manifests in your life. Ignorance, ignoring, right? Yes.
Is that sometimes translated as dullness, or is dullness a separate concept?
Yeah, dullness is a different concept. Dullness is more like jingwa. It's like
Yeah.
the sinking of shamatha. Like when you're trying to cultivate shamatha, you can either be dull or excited, right? Kind of back and forth, which is tied into ignorance, you could say, a feeling of that kind of like dark cloudiness, versus the excitation, which is usually stimulated by attachment, but also aversion, right? You can kind of ping pong back and forth with that one. Yeah, that's good. Good question. Yeah, so those are the 3 poisons. Some of you might be aware of the 5 poisons or 5 kleshas. Who's familiar with the 2 more? It's kind of more popular in later teachings. Anybody know what the other 2 are? There's jealousy, which is actually sort of an offshoot, they say, of aversion. And then there's pride, which is an offshoot of attachment. But those make 5. So the 3 root ones: attachment, aversion, and ignorance. And then the 2 extras, which is jealousy, and then pride or conceit. Because good pride is healthy, right? But arrogant pride, I like to call that conceit. It's called conceit. That's what conceit is. It's an out of balance pride. So those are the ways that the world affecting us can create toxicity in a way. And attachment, like healthy attachment, is not a bad thing. That's not what we're talking about. What we're talking about is the kind of attachment that is clingy, that brings us out of balance, that just creates more suffering in us or others. It's also on a personal level. It's the grasping mind that's always identifying on with thought. And then the ego suffering that can happen with that identification, that reification of thoughts. So that's what we mean by attachment. Sometimes it's translated as desire. But I don't like to give desire a bad rap. I mean, sometimes desire is really beautiful, right? And energizing. And in Tantra, we move towards desire and we alchemize it. So I like the attachment, but we have to qualify it a little bit. Okay. So then the three poisons in that vein of Tantra can then become the three seeds of virtue. How? Well, like a peacock, I've checked this, and it's kind of like a myth, which is a lie told for the greater truth, benefit of the greater truth. It can't be proven that this is true, but in Indian mythology, they say that peacocks eat poisonous snakes. That is true. And that they can transform the poison into the iridescence of their feather, their plumage. That's what I couldn't confirm, if that really is true, if the poison really becomes the plumage. But, in the ancient kingdoms or the Rajas' residence, they would have peacocks there to eat the poisonous snakes to protect the children and the people. That was pretty cool to learn. I grew up, my neighbor had peacocks. I'd go walking through the forest and I'd find peacock feathers. It was like treasure. I have fond memories of that. And then hearing their cries, which is like a woman crying, like, it sounds like a woman howling or something. It's always scared me. Okay, so like peacocks that can transform, maybe metaphorically, the poison into beauty, the vibrancy of their feathers, or you can say like the alchemy of transforming poison into medicine. These poisons of attachment, aversion, and ignorance, or the three kleshas they're called, are opportunities to open us to bodhicitta. How? Well, if we experience aversion, have you ever had this experience where you're so angry at somebody, but then you come to a point where you realize that they're doing what they're doing because they're suffering, and then you can turn and have a feeling of like, open to a capacity for compassion for them. That is how aversion can move into love or compassion. Right. Okay, so here's what it is. 3 seeds of virtue. Instead of being reactive, like 3 poisons would make us, we can drop the storyline, as Pema Chodron says, and feel the tenderness behind it, or the wound behind our anger, our aversion, our attachment, our clinging, our ignorance, and transform it. Feel that soft spot, alchemize it, like the peacock. And I'll wrap up with this. How does that happen? Well, they say that the poison of attachment becomes loving kindness. So that energy behind attachment, when it can become balanced and integrated, you could say, or deeply understood, it can become love or loving kindness. Then the so-called poison of aversion or hatred, pushing away, when it's alchemized, you could say, integrated, healed, like understood, it can become, like I was just hinting at, it can become an understanding that gives rise to compassion. So compassion can be born out of aversion. Does that make sense? Yeah. Like Thich Nhat Hanh says that understanding leads to compassion. When we can understand why people do what they do, or why things perhaps went awry or have gone wrong, we can understand the karmas or the backstory, then we're more likely to feel compassion. So understanding is an important aspect of that. And then the third poison of indifference or ignorance becomes what's called equanimity. So it's not a numb indifference anymore, but it's like, oh, I can see, I can hold both these truths at the same time. The sorrow and the joy, the comedy and the tragedy, and have a kind of equanimous approach to life. It's not a dullness or an indifference. It's very vibrant, but it's a wisdom. It's really a sign, I think, of wisdom. Somebody who can approach life's ups and downs, likes and dislikes, pleasant and unpleasant, with equanimity, with balance, but also a wakeful humor, right? A little bit of humor is good too. So in a way that can be like a koan for you to contemplate this week. You know, how can my anger or aversion open to compassion without being performative or faking it? Like, can I get to that? And if so, how? You angry at yourself? How many people get angry at themselves? It's probably what we usually, the most common, right? It's tragic, but it's so true. So then how can you find your way to feeling compassion for yourself? Wow, I'm not perfect. That's okay. Nobody's perfect, right? Like, I made a mistake. Everybody makes a mistake. That's okay. Compassion. You understand. And likewise for attachment. You ever been so in love with somebody that you get so horribly jealous or you're so attached? It's yucky. Can you open into like, oh, I love them, so I want them to be happy, even if that means not being with me all the time, right? Like that's loving kindness. That's transforming attachment into loving kindness. And then the middle, like how can you transform indifference or boredom even, or dullness into equanimity? That's interesting. Anyone have any suggestions for that one? How might you, when you're feeling indifferent or numb or bored, what would bring you to a feeling of equanimity? That's almost harder for me to think of an example. Anyone want to offer something up? Yeah.
I have just a comment that might be helpful.
Yeah.
Is this associated with the 3 channels? Because in Tantra,
Yeah.
it's associated with the left channel, the right channel, and the central channel.
Yes.
So doing some sort of central channel clearing.
Yeah. Yes. Come at it from a yogic doorway, which can be a good tool to have, good way. Right. So the central channel is associated with ignorance. So that's why she suggested work with the central channel. It depends on the system, but the right can be aversion, the left can be attachment. Some systems
We usually
flip
say
it.
anger for aversion,
Yeah.
which would be my right channel.
Yeah. Yeah. Anger is common too, anger. And my way to, I like aversion because it's like the pushing away and then the attaching is the pulling. But it's sometimes hatred, anger. Okay, but maybe any other ideas? Yes.
It's like sometimes I get bored. Getting into a space where I do like connected meditation, where the reason I'm bored is because there's nothing actually bothering me,
Uh-huh.
and just knowing that it's going to pass away, there will be something that bothers me.
That is
It's
the
like a kind of enjoying the equanimity I have right
I love that. That's really great. That's helpful. Yeah. Yeah, the beneath the boredom is actually a gift, right? Of equanimity. Because pretty soon the tsunami's going to hit again, so why not enjoy the calm between the storms? Yeah. And find that deep ground or the depth of the ocean that's always there beneath you. Right? That's cool. Thank you. Yes.
This is a question actually about delusion. I've heard it said before that actually fear and anxiety is a manifestation of delusion.
Yeah, that can be
rather
true.
than aversion, or is it?
Well, I had said that jealousy was an offshoot of aversion, not fear and anxiety. Fear and anxiety underlies the whole fucking story, basically. Like, you have the mandala structure, the center and the 4 quadrants. The center is ignorance or delusion. And in each quadrant, the other 4 kleshas arise. So like in the east is Vajra family, and the imbalance is anger or aversion. In the south is the Ratna family, the jewel family, and the imbalance is pride, conceit. You also have the wisdom. So you go around the mandala and you can have people will often ask, well, where's fear and anxiety? Because that's really prevalent. That's a big one in our culture right now. And my teacher, Lama Tselchen, said, well, fear is underneath all of it. Fear is, it's the basic split, like the terror, the cosmic terror from being split from the Great Mother, it's that cosmic fear. But then it also manifests in insecure attachments as children, and then this world is so full of challenges. So in a way, it could be linked more with delusion. Absolutely. But also, I've learned from various texts and teachers that if you were to put fear in one of those quadrants, it would be closer to the east of Vajra, anger. So that kind of ties in with what you said too. Yeah? Yeah. Yeah, the mandala is a cool way to learn about all this stuff, because if you like pictures and symbolism, it's easy way to. There's a great book by my teacher called Wisdom Rising, and she talks all about the mandala principle, the wisdoms, the imbalances, the kleshas, the colors, the time of year, the seasons, the elements, the symbols. It's so beautiful. The mandala, they call it chakra mandala. All of that is based on these foundational teachings of the mandala. I'm a little aware of time. Is it quick?
Yeah, I was just going to say, what about a flash of emptiness?
Yeah, how did that feel to you? What about it?
It'll be neither of aversion or attachment.
Right.
So there's equanimity.
Not one, not two, not both, not neither. It's that in between. That's the teachings of the Heart Sutra. Emptiness, on emptiness. The tetralemma. But that's good. Thank you for bringing that up. Yeah. Okay, so close your eyes. I'm going to sing you a little closing song. This is a devotional song praising Lord Shiva, the god of impermanence, destruction. Gaupura Gauram Karunavataram Samsara Saram Bhujagendraharam Sadhasanatvam Hridayadavinde Bhavan Bhavani Sahitam Namami. Namah Shivaya. All good things come to an end. Thank you, everybody. Perhaps you'll contemplate the three objects: pleasant, unpleasant, neutral, the three poisons: attachment, aversion, ignorance, giving way to the three virtues: love, compassion, equanimity. Yeah, we did it. We can move on next week.
We did it.
We did it. All right, you guys, thank you. I'll sit up here, and I'm sorry we went a little bit over. What is it? Not too bad. But yeah, we did it with a little extra time. So I'll sit up here. If you have questions or if you're new, please introduce yourself. I'd love to meet you. There's tea out in the hallway. Get to know your Sangha, your friends. And do we have any announcements, Hannah?
Yeah, I'll make a few announcements. So our dance class that we have on Sunday mornings is going on hiatus for the summer after this coming Sunday. So if you haven't gotten a chance to check that out, it's Integral Flow, Sunday mornings at 10:30. And the same teacher, Miriam, does a workshop once a month, and her next one is on the 16th. And there'll be some really lovely live musicians. She has like Sufi whirling inspired
Ooh,
dancing. So
nice.
check those out. Those are the two big ones coming up.
Great. Thank you. Awesome. All right. See you later. Please we appreciate help putting things away.
Yes, cushions can go stacked on those stacks there with the zippers to the back.
You're welcome.
Amazing.
Oh,
It was
good.
our first time.
Oh, I thought you looked new. What's your name?
Maya.
Maya. Nice to meet you. Yeah. Is this your first time at the Alembic, or have you done other stuff?